Welcome to episode 21 of Winning the Moment. I've got Levi Swenson, a financial advisor with Northwestern Mutual, here with me today. And if you're looking for financial advice, this isn't the podcast for you. We just talk about life and raising kids and how you define success. It was really a riveting conversation. So much true value. Both Levi and I share some vulnerable stuff about people in our lives, our parents, and our relationship with them. And I think you're really going to connect with it. Stay tuned. Be sure to listen to the end. And most importantly, enjoy the episode. Welcome back to another episode of Winning the Moment. Wherever you are and however you are listening, thanks for joining us today. I've got a good friend of mine, Levi Swenson, and he is a financial advisor with Northwestern Mutual. Levi, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
What's fun about doing this is one, you were baseball teammates with Rio, right?
Yeah.
So small world there. And two, Levi and I met like in one of the most old school fashioned forms of networking that exists, and that was a charity golf tournament. McRae Hepler put us on the same team.
I forgot about that. That's right.
That's how we met each other. So that was like probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. And we just hit it off and had a great time at the tournament and kind of been friends ever since. But thank you so much for being on the podcast and being willing to sit here and chat with me today.
Of course, I'm excited.
So let's talk a little bit about who Levi Swenson is. Like, what's your backstory? A lot of it I won't even know because, you know, when you run into people and you build those relationships, so much of it, you don't have time to we've never sat down for 60 minutes and had a conversation.
Yeah.
You know, we've played golf together, gone lunch together. So tell me a little bit about where you're from and what makes Levi.
Yeah, so I grew up in Bountiful, Utah.
Okay.
And I played baseball, never golfed, ever.
Wow.
I thought it was going to ruin my baseball swing, so I steered away from that. And I thought I was going to go pro at baseball. And obviously, you've had Rio on this. And so grew up in Bountiful, went to Viewmont High School.
Okay.
And then I got a scholarship at Southern Utah University to go play baseball for them. So I took it, and I moved down to Cedar City.
Were you married at the time or with your wife? No, okay.
No, but my wife's from Kaysville.
Okay.
So we both grew up in northern Utah, and then we moved down to Cedar, not knowing each other. We met each other.
Just both ended up at SU.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was not the greatest experience, like me and Michelle meeting first.
Okay.
It was kind of fun.
Elaborate on that.
So, I met her. One of my roommates was trying to essentially build his resume, and so he started a club called Students Committed to Integrity and Ethics, or SCI.
Oh, I think, is that what Rio talked about on the podcast?
Rio, yeah.
Okay.
So my roommate started that.
Okay.
And so I was like, yeah, let's go. So we went to the club fair, and my wife was a cheerleader, which is a club event at Southern Utah. And so we met there, and I got her phone number, thought things were going well. And that night we had a party for SUU.
Yeah.
And I went to it, and it was like a luau theme or something like that. And when I saw her and her friend, they looked very similar then.
No.
So I mixed the two of them up, and
That's
she
incredible.
took like a year for me to
Win her back
or whatever. And every single time.
That is great.
And so her and her friend were friends with a lot of baseball players, so they give me crap all the time about it. Like, hey, this one's Michelle, this one's Heidi.
And which one's your wife?
Michelle.
Michelle, okay.
And so
God, that is hilarious.
It was pretty funny. And then we like a year after we met, we started dating. And after that, we decided to get married, stayed in Cedar City.
Did you get married in college or after?
In college.
Okay.
So so we got married in college, and then from there we went to I graduated and got my master's degree. She got her.
What'd you get your master's in?
My MBA.
Oh, okay, in business.
Yeah, in business. And then Michelle graduated, and we said, let's get out of the cold weather. Let's move to St. George. Let's get away from family for a little bit.
Yeah. That's a good thing for all young couples to do, I think.
I think so, too.
You know, go get away from your family and create your own family unit, like how you want to do it, without all the pressures of following the tradition that already existed. I think it's important for you and your spouse or significant other to create your own traditions first.
Oh, for sure. I think so often, in a marriage, you'll see one spouse trying to, impose or push their own traditions from their family onto the new one, and it just causes a lot of conflict.
You got to build that together.
So it was kind of fun. So we graduated, moved down here. And
did you get your MBA from SUU?
I did.
You did? Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So how many years were you in college?
So I finished my undergrad and graduate degree, or my undergrad in 3 years, and then I got my MBA in my 4th year.
Wow, that's amazing. That's impressive. So when did baseball stop becoming the thing?
It was after my junior year, so I didn't play my senior year.
Oh, why?
I just knew it was time to move on. I was graduated from with my degree in finance, and then from there I just said, I got to do something and start making some money. So I got my master's degree, and then I started interning.
Because baseball took so much time.
Baseball takes so much time.
And you were married now, so it's like you were ready to...
And I got to make money.
Yeah.
I got to do something. And I had a buddy of mine that was in high school that he went to CSN, which is the same college that Bryce Harper went to. And,
okay.
And so he got drafted after 1 year of playing at Southern Nevada. And I thought, I saw his lifestyle. He was traveling all the time. And I thought, that's not what I want.
Yeah.
So
do you think you could have made it?
I don't think. I think I probably could have played in a farm system.
Yeah.
But as far as making it to the big leagues, it's no.
When did that realization hit you that like, all right, I'm not going to do it?
Well, dude, I don't know. Because you think about, like, I'm not a big guy. And so when I was in Little League, they never thought I was going to play high school. Then they never thought I was going to play college. And so I think that's one of those things that has always driven me is because people doubted that I could do that just being my size.
How tall are you?
I'm 5'8.5", 5'9".
Okay.
But I mean, you see some of these guys in the big leagues. Like I remember Alex Rodriguez when he first joined in the league, and I mean, he's 6'3", playing shortstop, and that's what I always thought I would. I mean, I thought you had to be small, quick, agile, and now all of a sudden these guys are 6'3" and built.
Yeah, Jose Altuve figured it out.
He did. He swings a big stick.
What did you play shortstop or?
I played all different. Like I played shortstop, second, and third in college, and I pitched a little bit too.
Okay.
So just someone to get up there and throw a whole bunch of junk.
Yeah, it is a tough life. Baseball's a hard one because you have to go through the rigors of the farm system to make it. Yeah. You know, like you got such a battle ahead of you and so much struggle.
And it's not easy. I mean,
no, of course not.
My buddy that he was in the Braves organization, and I remember he got called up to a AA game, and right after that he got let go. Oh,
because they saw him in AA and were like, "Oh, you can't do it."
Yeah, so it's. I mean, I would say that he was similar to me as far as like stats, you know, all that kind of stuff. But it's such a hard road to take. I mean, it's almost impossible.
Is baseball still your favorite sport?
No, dude. I think golf is now.
Yeah.
Golf's that's taken up a lot of my free time. It's a good way for me to network and market. That's how we got to know each other. I mean, I love to golf.
Andrew got a hole in one today.
Did he really?
Yeah. Yeah, he was playing. He must have been playing in a tournament because they had like the green had like dots around it, and he did this video. He's like, yeah, so if you hit it in this circle, like you get $20. And so there was a ball in the circle, and I was thinking like, oh, that's sweet. Watch how nonchalant he is.
Supposed to land it within this little 8-foot circle to win $20. My ball lands not even the green. Rolls into the cup.
That is awesome.
I honestly thought he was sending us the video to show how close he was, because the other ball it was like 6 inches probably from the pin. So like that is awesome, you know. And Andrew's not a great golfer. He's just working on it, you know. So I mean, he's got one more hole in one than I do now. So,
I know. I don't.
Do you have one?
No.
Isn't that wild? I've only ever seen one in person.
I've only seen one as well.
My dad got it on Southgate on the first par 3 and you cross the bridge. So that's like what, hole 5?
Yeah. Yeah, my buddy, so when we went out and played, we played Southgate as well, and we were playing horrible. It was so hot. We were playing absolutely horrible, and he hit a ball, and all of a sudden we see it just start trickling up. So it was on the back 9, probably. It's not the one over the water, but the one before that.
Oh, yeah, before the par 5.
It rolls in there, and I was like, you son of a gun. And then a year later, he goes to Pebble Beach and hits another hole in one.
No way.
And I wasn't there for that one, but
that's amazing. Have you played Black Rock yet?
Black Desert?
Yeah, Black Desert.
Oh, yeah.
I went out there I had a tee time and went out there to play and had an irrigation leak. And so we didn't get to play. I was so bummed, but they gave us a rain check to come back another time. So that's cool. But
well, with the PGA event coming,
I know
It's going to be so much fun.
I know. I want to try and play it like as close to the PGA event as possible, you know?
So it could be as hard as it can be.
So I can just experience that. Okay, so back to your story. So senior year, you quit baseball. You start interning in finances.
Yeah, so I went out and did like summer sales for...
Oh, you did? Okay. Did you go on a mission?
I did, yeah.
You did, okay.
I went on a mission.
Before college baseball?
So I played 1 year of college baseball, then I went on a mission, then I came back and played ball.
Where'd you go on your mission?
Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay.
So just down the road.
Yeah. Short little jump.
Yeah, so no, it was kind of weird opening your call in Cedar City and seeing your mission goes into Big Water, Utah. Like, so it's not much of a drive, but it was fun. So I went on a mission, came back, played 2 years after my mission, and then decided I needed to make some money.
Yeah.
So we went out to Louisiana to do summer sales. And
did your wife do it too? Did she also sell?
No, so she didn't sell. So I only had 6 weeks between when the master's program started as well as when baseball ended, because baseball kind of goes into the summer a little bit.
Yeah.
So I had 6 weeks to sell, and in that 6 week time period, we were getting married.
Oh wow!
So so I went out, sold for 3 weeks, came back, got married, spent like 2 days in Utah after getting married, and then we flew back out. And
jeez,
so we were out there for 3 weeks doing door-to-door sales. We were selling alarms there.
With like Vivint or?
It was with it's called back then it was called Silverline Security.
Okay.
And now it's basically Alder now.
And were you good at that?
I think I did pretty well. Like I won some rookie competitions and stuff like that. It was a fun and a good way to earn a lot of money, and it teaches you.
When you already done the mission, so it's like the hardest part is just knocking the doors, and you already had 2 years of experience doing that.
Yeah, and a lot of people can't handle rejection.
That's what I think is so character building about a mission, is it just like reinforces the ability to take no.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get so many no's, so many doors shut, so many lack of opportunities, and you don't have a choice but to keep going, you know? So it's like where most people would quit after so much rejection. In a mission, you're just like, well, I'm here for 2 years. This is what I do every day, no matter what. Whether I get 100 no's or 1 yes, I'm knocking doors tomorrow, you know?
Yeah, you got to do it every single day. And that's the same, like, when people ask me how I handle success or handle failure within the business, because it happens a lot, all the time.
Yeah, I hated it. Like when I was a financial advisor, because people would ask for something and I would give them the thing they asked for, and then they would still say no. And I'd never been in an experience where there was, in all my sales background, if someone had a problem and I solved it, that equaled a sale.
Right.
That was the question. Problem, solve, sale. So then in the financial world, problem, solved, indecision.
Right.
And it was like so frustrating for me because I couldn't we don't need to get too into that, but it was a very difficult process to go through for sure.
It is. But I guess I've gotten used to failing. Like, if you look at baseball, you fail 7 out of 10 times. You're considered
isn't that interesting?
Hall of Famer.
Baseball's kind of different like that, you know, because like in some other sports, if you had a 30% success rate, you're out of the league.
Oh, you're done.
But baseball, if you have a 30% success rate, batting 300, you're a great hitter.
So
you know?
I guess I've just failed. Become accustomed to failing, so it keeps me motivated and excited.
That's a great perspective. Okay, so then circling back, so you went out, sold for 6 weeks, and then did you say you came back and finished your MBA?
Came back. So I started the MBA program.
Okay.
After we got back, and my wife Michelle had 1 more year of school, so it worked out perfect. We were both able to graduate at the same time.
That's awesome.
And then from there we moved down to St. George and bought a little place, and I mean, since then it's been awesome. We love it.
Did you use your money from the summer sales to get into your first place?
So no, we used that to live on for the next year.
Okay.
So we were able to graduate with no debt.
That's amazing.
So she had a scholarship for cheerleading, and then I had a baseball scholarship, and then we were able to use that money that I earned. So
as husband and wife that graduated college with no debt, how do you feel about the government just relieving student debt?
You know, I don't know. I was talking to somebody about that just the other day. Like, I think something's got to change. I don't know what it is. Yeah. But to keep up with tuition or inflation, like, I mean, the prices are getting like
wouldn't the solution
high.
be the schools just charge less?
Yeah, that's what it seems like it would be. I mean, I don't think they should just forgive all of them, because there's some people that, like, they're constantly going to school. They can't figure out what they want to do. And then there's also other people that say, hey, you know what, I don't necessarily know what direction I want to go. So I'm just going to go to college.
Well, what do you learn if, like, to your point about failure before, if all of that is wiped away, what do you really, like, what's the value you get off of that?
Yeah, you don't get anything.
Because you guys had to work so hard to graduate with no debt. So that was like, that's what allowed you to be successful now. Imagine if when you guys were going through it, someone's like, oh, you don't have to pay for it anymore.
Oh.
Like how different your drive and ambition would have been, because it's like, oh,
well,
okay.
That's interesting because, like, when I talk to people about, saving money, and I just relate it back to my experience. Like, when I was going to college, my dad helped me out my first year, just as far as living expenses, books, things like that.
Well, also, you're on a scholarship, so you couldn't really have a job.
Right.
You were playing baseball.
And so I took that freshman year, and I just did not do very well. Because if somebody else is paying for it, there's no, it's free money, and you just go out there and you do whatever you want. And my grades were horrible. And then after I got home from my mission, I was like, hey, you got to pay for this. And at that point in time, it meant something to me because it was my own hard-earned money.
Yeah, for sure.
And
it's
so,
different when you work for it.
Yeah. And so I think that's with anything in life, whether it's a business that's kind of handed to somebody, or you have to put in the work to really appreciate what you have.
Well, that's why they say 80% of second-generation businesses fail.
Yeah.
Right? Because the first generation had that blood, sweat, and tears to get it successful. So second generation comes in, and now it's this well-oiled machine that's just pumping dividends, pumping payroll. And so they don't have that same connection to hard work because they just were given this thing. Yeah. So that's a true statement. 80% of second-generation businesses fail.
Well, and then the stats even higher if you go into the third generation.
Oh, yeah. It's like almost none of them make it.
They never saw their grandparents essentially working their butts off to make sure that business is
They just saw their dad playing golf and having money driving sports cars, you know?
So yeah, I think that if you don't have to put blood, sweat, tears into something, you don't really appreciate the value of it. And so that's why I'd say with school, something's got to change, but maybe that's just lowering tuition.
How do you handle that as a parent? How many kids do you have?
I got 3.
3 kids. Like, with the success that you've had and the lifestyle you're creating for your children, how do you manage that?
Dude, that is a hard question. And I don't know. Because when they're younger, I mean, if they want something, what do? You buy it for them. It might cost $10, $15, $20 at the most.
Yeah.
And so I've noticed that sometimes that entitlement, it gets present, and it's something that I don't want my kids to have.
It's a hard thing to balance because on one hand, you work so hard to provide for your family.
Right.
So then now that you have the means to provide, you obviously want to do that, but then you've got to balance that ability to provide with, like, helping them understand, like we stayed at a DoubleTree coming back from road trip one time with my kids, and being in hospitality, we're really fortunate to get really affordable rates to stay in amazing properties. We went to this DoubleTree, and my kid's like, this is disgusting. And it's like, no, guys, this is not disgusting. This is a nice property and a nice hotel, but it's hard because they just haven't, like, they only know what they know,
right. And how do you manage that? I don't know. Like, that's a constant battle that I'm trying to figure out, because I don't want to give them too much where they don't appreciate what they have. But at the same time, it's like the other way. Like, you do work your butt off.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that they live a good life, but I mean, it's not easy.
Well, I can remember being a kid. My dad would always we lived in Cheyenne, Wyoming, so 2 hours north of Denver, and we would buy like the 10-game like Nuggets pass, right? So you get 2 tickets to 10 games. And we would go, and we were like high up, and I'd always look at the boxes and be like, one day I'm going to go to a game in a box. Like, just go to one.
Yeah.
Like, one game in the box, I'm going to do it one day. And then now, at Vibrant, we share a box with Matt from Accent Painting. And so it's like, not only do I get to go to a game in a box, but I own those seats in the box, And so my kids have only been to Jazz games in a box.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't really want to take them and sit up in the top, because then now they would just be like, what are we doing, Dad?
Right.
So it's like, so they're not going to have that same ambition that I had because they're already living it,
So do you have any good insight on that? Because that's something
trying to figure it out.
I'm trying to figure out. And so I've read books on it. Like,
I think you just have to, I'm always transparent with them about what I'm like, why I'm working and what I'm doing. Like, I was just in Florida for a week. I just got back Wednesday night, had to go. And then my kids were going to go to Vail Pools yesterday. Like, Dad, can you come? It's like, no, I got to go to work. And then this morning I left because this is my 3rd podcast of the day. And it's like, no, I got to go do this. And so just helping them understand, like, we get that because I do this.
Right.
Right. Like, there has to be this to have that.
And I think that they'll understand that as time goes on.
Yeah.
Maybe not right now.
Yeah. My kids are 7 and 9 right now.
Okay. So I have a 9, 7, and a 4-year-old.
Okay.
And I don't think that they necessarily fully understand it right now, but as time goes on, I think that they will start to appreciate, how hard I had to work and the things that I had to do. Because it's the same thing. It's like I got a phone call yesterday from my kids saying, "Hey, Dad, can you come home early? Can you come home early?" And as much as I would love to go home early, I mean, I have other obligations that I need to take care of.
Right.
So
yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. I don't know, and I think for sure here's a good example. So I love Jordans, right? And so I got a new pair of Jordans, and my son, he's like, "Dad, I want one of those." And I was like, "Well, here's the thing, dude. Your feet grow too fast. I'm not spending $100 on shoes for you. However, if you want to buy them yourself, by all means, like, I don't care what you buy, He's like, "Well, I don't have $100. I was like, "I know, but people who do have money. Why don't you ask them for it?" So he was like, "How do I do that?" I was like, "Well, call your grandparents." So he got my phone, FaceTimed his grandmas, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and said, "I'm trying to raise money to get my first pair of Jordans. Like, could you Venmo my dad $5? Went to all the neighbors' houses and asked them if they'd be willing to support him getting his first pair of Jordans. Ended up raising $100 in, like, I don't know, 30 minutes.
So easy.
Bought a pair of Jordans.
That's awesome.
And so now he owns, like, he paid for those, so he values them so much more because he put in the work to be able to get them.
So do you do any sort of like allowance or money for your kids?
I want to start that now because I think like my daughter's finally at the age where she can compute what it is, because I think that's where I learned my financial literacy, and maybe literacy is the wrong word, how to leverage money. Because like I would get $20 a week for allowance for like lunch, not allowance, but lunch food. And so at our school for $1, I could get a bagel and cream cheese, which meant that I had $4 left over, right?
Yeah.
And so then I would take that money and I would use that to like buy a pair of like messed up Jordans that I could sell and clean and then make money off of that. So it's like I wasn't working. I was too young. So I would just take opportunities to leverage an opportunity into means to create a new opportunity.
Yeah. And that's where it's been hard because sometimes I think, okay, well, the kids, an allowance, like, I don't know if that's something that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I think it's good. I think it needs to be tied to effort though. Right? Because I think in order to, like, so for my kids, I'll make like a star chart and it's like get 20 stars this week and then you get whatever the monetary amount that's appropriate is. And if you don't do the stars, you don't get the money. So they start to learn the value of like, oh, work equals money. Because I think if you just gave your kids $20 every week for nothing, then I don't know that there's any real value there. Because I kind of go back to your first year in school. If they spend it, there won't be any like heartache.
Right.
Because it's like, oh, I just will do nothing and get another $20.
Yeah. So but then do you have it tied to chores that they should do anyways? Like that's where, like, because living in the house, not being charged rent, like obviously you're not going to charge.
Yeah, they should be doing those things anyways. I hear what you're saying.
And so that's where it's a little bit difficult for me to like draw the line. Like, are they going above and beyond? Yeah,
I think I just give it to them for the things they should do anyway. It's kind of like a job. Like if someone hires you, there's things you should just do anyways, but you still get rewarded if you do those things. And so I think I'm just creating value on the things they're doing. So there's a connection as to why they're doing it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm putting the dishes away because that gets me a star for today, which gets me closer. And then ultimately, like the way that my brain works, I'd probably say like, look, 20 stars is this and 40 stars is that.
Yeah.
So then if you go above and beyond, then it doubles.
See, and I think that's a good idea. Like I've heard of some people that give their kids, an allowance, but if they do something better or above and beyond, then they get more. So they can kind of correlate
hard work.
Hard work equals more money, which I think, in today's world, I don't know. It seems like people want to come in, clock in and clock out and be done.
There's definitely a generational gap in desire, right? And so you got to think like, man, our children are now the next workforce.
Yeah.
And the one that exists right now has got some opportunity. So we better do a good job of making sure the next round has some work ethic built in, because you're totally right. So many people are willing to just show up and get away with, do as little as possible. It's funny. We were at the airport flying back from Florida on Delta. We had to walk like all the way down to B Gates because we're flying back to St. George and walk down that stupid ramp and get on a bus. And there's a kid just sitting there with his feet up, just on his phone, like watching YouTube or playing a game or I don't know what. And it's like, how is someone paying that kid to do that? And then there was a girl 100 yards further checking our boarding passes to get on the bus. And I'm thinking, how does she feel about her, my coworker,
right, over
there just sitting with his feet up watching YouTube? Like she's actually doing a job that has merit and value. and this particular person is doing nothing.
Yeah.
Like I would feel like that would create dissension amongst them because she's actively working and he's doing nothing.
Yeah, you would think so. And that's something that I got to start doing a better job of teaching my kids that. Because, I mean, oftentimes they don't even know the value of a dollar when.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that allowance does do for them is that it gives them the ability to earn money. So then if they want to go buy their pair of Jordans or whatever it might be, now all of a sudden they're like, oh, that's $100. Okay, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, I don't know, there's a lot of areas that I'm like, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing because we have some friends and their little kids know exactly how much everything that they own costs and everything that they own is very, very high end.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, I don't know if that's a good thing either to say, oh yeah, well we have a $300,000 boat.
Yeah, no, yeah, I can see my kids getting caught in that trap sometimes too. They're like, Dad, how much is this and how much is that? Because so and so's got this and so, and I was like, you don't want to talk about money. Like, don't worry about it. Don't have those conversations with people, or because like we put money away in. Do you think I can say what I put money away for my kids in or no?
Yeah.
So I have a whole life account for both of my kids that I put money into every month. And so they know that and they know that they're going to get money. So then they'll be with their friends and be like, Dad, how much money do I have in that account? And it's like, guys, that's not a conversation you have with your friends.
It was so funny. I thought I was going to be a good dad one day, and I was like, okay, I'm going to take them to the bank and have them open their bank account.
Yeah.
It's going to be so much fun. So we go to the bank and like they got their little dumb suckers. And they thought it was so much fun for probably the first 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And I have 3 kids, so it took them a little bit of time to get all those accounts set up. And probably after the first 3 minutes, it was like, okay, Dad, are we done? This is so boring. Let's go. And I'm like, oh, dang it. But now they do want to see how much money's in their account.
Yeah.
So I think it's good for them to be able to see that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, and then even to that point, I don't know if what I'm doing is good for them or not because now they just know when they're 18 that they have like access to funds. And ultimately I'm in control of those funds, right? But they still know it's there. So there's probably a little bit of security that I'm providing that could potentially detract from there. Cuz like I didn't have that and it caused me to work harder. So it's like am I creating a new system that doesn't need to be created out of a desire to create through creating security? Am I actually creating like stagnation?
Yeah, and I don't know what dollar amount it's going to be in the future, but at the same time, you do want to make sure your kids are set up and that they're doing things, and you do work hard so that you can essentially provide generational wealth for the next generations. But it is a difficult like line to balance for me.
Yeah, and then you don't want to create it just so they can waste it.
Right. And I think well,
I think for me, for that money for my kids, it's like, okay, you can use it to go to school. I hope that's not their choice. And maybe I'll even take that option off the table. But you could use it to certainly create a business, or you could use it to get a down payment on a house or to get into an investment. Like those are the only things that I'll allow them the access to it for.
Yeah. And I think that's good to have some guidelines around it because I mean, obviously, if you inherit millions of dollars, it's
if you gave me, 20 grand at 18 years old, no strings attached, it would be a couple weekends in Vegas and a couple bad decisions and like a down payment on a new car. I wouldn't have done anything productive with it.
Right.
I would have had nothing to show for it had I gotten it at 18.
Yeah. And so, no, I think the way you're doing things is spot on. I mean, I want my kids to learn the value of a dollar. I want them to realize how hard it is to earn money.
Yeah.
And to realize that they have to do certain things in order to get money. So
one thing I realized too the other day is growing up, I always had to do a bunch of shit jobs around the house. Like we had like a deck when I was a kid, and so we'd have to stain it like every summer. And my dad would always stain like the floor of the deck. He had like the big roller. Yeah. And he gave me the little paintbrush and like stain the.
You had to do all the poles.
Yeah, exactly. Or like putting up the fence, and I'd have to like screw them all in. Or I always just had all this work to do, and I just realized the other day, like, shoot, I've taken that opportunity away from my kids because now I feel like time is money, and so for a lot of manual labor type things, yard work, dog poop, like anything like that, it's so cheap to outsource it.
Right.
That then I don't even do it. Therefore, then my kids don't have an opportunity to see me do it or to do it themselves. So it's like, oh man, I don't want to do it with them.
See, and that's like my mother-in-law comes down fairly regularly, and she came down, and I don't remember, it was on a certain day, I think Wednesday. Like we have our pool guy come over, we have our lawn guy come over, and then we had someone come and clean our house. And And for me, that's just something that I don't want to spend time doing on the weekends when I feel like I have some free time to do something with my family.
Yeah.
So I hire that out to somebody else.
Well, and their hourly rate is much less than your hourly rate. So the 1 hour you would be cleaning your pool, if you took that same hour and spent it at work,
right,
the return on that work hour is greater than you doing the pool, because you only have so much time in a day.
Yeah.
So if you're not outsourcing it, then you're doing it. And is that really a plus or a negative?
Yeah. And so my mother-in-law, I remember her saying to me something like, golly, you have everything hired out. Like, don't have any friends come down here on a Wednesday or whatever day it was. And to me, I'm like, God, I never really thought about it like that. But to me, the value of time with my family or working.
And cleaning a house your size to take all day, you know?
Well, it would take a little bit of time, but I like, my wife's busy and running the kids around. I don't know how some people do it. Like, we have kids in dance, soccer, basketball. I mean, they're doing something all the time, every day.
My football's just getting ready to start again for my son. I was telling Spencer on the way home from Florida, I was like, man, that's another 4 hours of my week that I have to now find.
Yeah.
Because, to practice, actual practice, after practice, to the game, actual game, after the game. That's 4 hours a week that now I'm already busy.
Right.
And now I got to find 4 more hours to do. And I want to do the thing. And I'm excited to do the thing. But it still means that there's 4 hours of something else that's going to have to give.
Yeah.
And so I do the same thing. I outsource all of that stuff.
So it was interesting because I think so often, when people sit there and go through the things that they have to do or the changes that they have to make, it's so easy to just keep adding on. For people like you and I, I'll just add that on. And I was listening to Kat Cole. I don't know if you know who that is.
The name sounds familiar.
She runs, or I think she's the CEO of Athletic Greens.
Oh, dude, I saw her speak in person at the hospitality show. She was amazing. And she started with Cinnabons. So I've got a Cinnabon right here. Kat Cole, if you're listening, holla at me. Give me a sponsorship. Her story was amazing. She actually started as a waitress at Hooters. That's how she started. Waitress at Hooters was so good. They had her start doing training. Then she climbed from a waitress up to CEO of Hooters, then went to Cinnabon. Her Cinnabon story, have you heard it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Incredible. And then now she's at Athletic Greens.
Well, and that's one of the things, like the Cinnabon thing. Athletic Greens from Cinnabon is kind of a funny, crossover.
Polar opposites.
Yeah. But Cinnabon, one thing that she correlated to just life in general is that oftentimes you think you got to add. And sometimes it's better to take some stuff away.
Yeah.
And so I think that was something like with her role in Cinnabon, one thing that she did was instead of having those massive cinnamon rolls and as the only option at the airport or wherever you see it, started going to a smaller cinnamon roll. So half of it wasn't getting thrown away.
Yeah, that's what she said they found. They would always find them in the trash. Some people would be like, can I just get half of one? And they'd say no. And it's like, why aren't we giving the customer what they want? The best story of hers from Cinnabon is the Costco story, if you haven't heard it. Okay, yeah. Seeing her talk in person was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Her demeanor on stage and her ability to deliver a message through a story was, and now that I'm trying to get into speaking, I'm watching the keynotes at such a different level. It's like I'm watching a sport.
Yeah.
When you watch if you're watching a golfer, you're really paying attention to what club are they using, what are they swinging, what's their stance, all of these other things, all these nuances of the game. So now as I'm watching a speaker, I'm so much more in tuned to how did they start their speech? Where are they standing? How are they walking? When do they move? When do they stand still? When do they use their hands? When do they change their voice? There's so much to it. It's a performance like anything else,
Yeah. Yeah. So I heard her speak and she talked about the Costco story as well as Cinnabon.
Yeah.
So I heard her speak last month.
Where'd you see her at?
In Milwaukee.
Cool.
So
she must be on the circuit.
Yeah. And it was awesome. But then the other speaker that we had was Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs.
Yeah.
And so he kind of touched on some of the things with college and how a lot of people aren't necessarily wanting to go into those kind of jobs that he does on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But it was just an interesting dynamic and something that for me, you realize hey, there's plenty of opportunity out there. It's just, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
And so,
well, look at what you did. You created all your success yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like those positions exist for anyone who wants to try them, and it's just who's going to be good at it and who isn't. It's not like if you become a financial advisor, you're guaranteed success. In fact, I don't know what the percentage of success rate is, but it's got to be pretty small on a large scale.
Yeah, I don't know what it is either. I mean, the first, I don't know, 5 to 10 years are extremely difficult.
Yeah.
And oftentimes you kind of think like, oh, well, if I get, a lot of times when I talk to somebody that's just getting into it, they think, well, my uncle or somebody's going to help me out and give me some money. But the reality is that your friends and family want to see you successful, but they want to see you successful and grind on your own, or at least in my situation.
Yeah.
So before they are willing to become your clients.
Yeah. When you got to prove yourself.
Exactly.
It's their money. That's important. You want to give it to someone who knows what they're doing. So did you always know you wanted to go into finances, or like how did you like land on that as your career?
So I was actually thought I was going to go into pharmaceutical sales.
Oh, okay.
So I did that, or I did a couple ride-alongs with somebody and shadowed them. And after doing a fair amount of research, it seemed like pharmaceutical sales was a great option. But I didn't like how territorial it was. And if I was doing well and the guy in the next territory by me wasn't doing well, they could cut my area down and give it to them. And so
interesting.
Being a financial major, like for me, it just was one of those things where I've always liked talking about money. It's something that like I could talk to somebody about for as long as they want to talk.
Yeah.
But there's no territory. I mean, you can have clients all over the country, and it's your own business. So those are a couple of the things that I really liked. And so when I was out doing summer sales, I actually talked to a guy that was a wealth management advisor, and we were just chatting, and I was like, God, that would be a pretty good option. So then I came back and interviewed at, I don't know, probably 10 other companies, and just to kind of get an idea as far as what I liked and what I didn't like about it. And then I settled where I'm at.
What'd your wife go to school for?
Communications.
Did she end up using her degree at all?
She did. She worked for an oral facial surgeon in St. George. For the first little while, she was in charge of the marketing. She was kind of getting his name out there and helping build that business. But after we had a couple kids, we decided it was best for her to stay at home.
That's awesome. Are you guys still really active in your church?
Yeah. Well, we're active. So it's a good thing. Like, I think that it teaches the kids like about family, which is
stability and structure.
Huge thing for me right now, especially with the way the world's going.
Is any of your, you said your in-laws are up north, so they don't live here. What about your family?
Yeah, so they all live down here now.
They do?
So
that's nice.
Yeah. Well, I have one sister up in Provo, but I have one sister here, and then my mom and dad got divorced after moving down here, and my mom and dad are both remarried. So my dad actually has a couple younger kids now.
How young?
One of them's 4 and one of them's
8.
my
God, your dad has a 4-year-old?
My dad has a 4-year-old. So
that is wild.
So my son and his son.
Is your dad just a handsome cat like you, or what?
Absolutely. So my son and his son are good buddies. They go to preschool together. So it's kind of funny.
That's because that's his uncle, right?
Yeah, my wife will go pick him up, and the lady at the preschool will say, "Hey, where's his cousin?"
Yeah.
And my wife's like, "Oh, he's coming around or whatever." And my dad's wife was there, and she's like, "It's actually his uncle." And my wife's like, "Well, I didn't open that can of worms, but if you want to, go ahead." So it's interesting. But
so how old is his new wife?
I don't know, 33, 32.
Dang.
So yeah.
And how old's your wife?
She's 33.
I should have started with this. This is awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because I'm the oldest. I have 2 younger sisters.
Yeah.
And my dad's wife is in between my 2 sisters' ages.
Wow. How do you feel about that?
At first it was weird, like super weird. And she's, my dad's wife is very
Is your dad
shy.
independently successful?
He's started doing very, very well. But it hasn't always been like that.
Okay.
So it was kind of a unique situation. She was super shy. Like, we didn't really get to know her. But now that my boy and their kid is
his uncle,
our friends, like we see him more and more often. And she started to open up. And so now, like at first I was super nervous. I was telling my dad, "Hey, you got to have her sign a prenup. You got to do all these things." And he's like, "No, I don't want to do that." And it's worked out for him. And
how long have they been together now?
Probably probably 8 years now.
I want to see a picture of your dad.
Okay, I'll show you a picture.
Okay, so how long were your parents married for?
27 years.
27 years. Do you think that they were just waiting until you guys were adults?
Yeah, they always kind of fought a fair amount. And so
growing up, did you think like, oh man, mom and dad don't have a good relationship? Or yes, like you kind of knew like, man, they should just separate type deal?
Yeah, I knew that they were going to, I thought they were going to, but it wasn't until all the kids were gone that then all of a sudden they got a divorce.
Do you think that that's a good thing to do, to stay in a marriage that you're unhappy in for your kids? Or like, what's the right call in that situation?
That's a good question, because I don't know. Like, I see some marriages, like for me, I think it was a good thing to have them stay together, even though we knew that things weren't the greatest. But I see some people that are absolutely miserable together. And I don't think it's
a hard question to answer. My parents were married for 30 years. They got divorced when I was an adult, but my sister was like 15. And so it really affected my youngest sister, because basically they like used each other against each other with her.
Right.
And so the only real loser was her, like neither one of them were really there for in the way that they should have been, almost to spite each other,
right.
So it's like, had they gone 3 more years, it probably would have been better. But then like, is 3 years of your life being miserable worth it? That's probably not true. So it's like, I don't know what the answer is, but I know that obviously it impacts the children. And I also ask from like a religious background where you're, invested and committed to your church, like if that makes you feel any differently about it. I just don't know what the right answer is.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you see some marriages that people stay together and that everyone's miserable in that marriage. And even if they don't have kids, like if they have kids, I think that adds another dynamic to the whole situation.
Sure. I think it's different with kids, definitely.
But if they don't have kids, like within the church, they don't want to get a divorce because they don't want to have that label or whatever you want to call it.
Do you think that stigma's kind of gone away though?
I would hope so, but I don't think it has.
Really? That's surprising. I would feel like it'd be more open now.
Yeah, and I would think that it would be, but I also think one of the problems with the church as a whole, and you can find this in any church or any organization, but sometimes it's difficult to take judgment out of things. And I think a lot of times, people feel judged if they get a divorce or they're looked at differently. And so I was talking to one of my buddies just the other day, and he's divorced and he's got 2 kids. And so when he goes to his church, he's like, I sat by myself for a long time, and it's just not something that I really loved to do by myself. And I felt like people were judging me. And I don't like that aspect of things, is that a lot of people will put, they'll judge you and they'll treat you differently because of some decision, whether it was their fault or not their fault.
Sure.
I mean, things happen all the time.
Yeah. Does having your parents separate after all that time shake your faith in marriage at all, or feel any differently about it? Or do you feel the same?
No, I've actually think that it's been extremely helpful for me, because I've been able to learn from the things that have happened with my parents.
Sure.
And so I guess one of the things about me is like, it's easy for me to cut people off.
Me too.
Which is probably not the best thing in the world.
Or is it?
I don't know.
I mean, the way that I say it is, if you don't serve value in my life, there's no reason for me to continue to keep you in my life.
Right.
Like if you were a net negative to me, just like you said earlier, sometimes it's addition by subtraction.
Yeah.
Like if you were a net negative and you impact my life negatively always, I will remove you. I don't care who you are.
Right.
Wife, mother, father, son, brother, friend, anyone. Like if you constantly create negativity in my life, then you're out. If you can switch that dynamic and be neutral and or be positive, then I will let you back into the fold. But like with my mom for a while after that divorce, it was not a healthy relationship. I didn't talk to her for 5 years.
Yeah.
And emotionally for me, that's totally fine, because it was not a positive relationship in my life.
Yeah. And people will do that. They'll either give you energy or they'll take energy away.
Everyone.
And so you don't want to spend, like, I don't want to spend my time with somebody that's a constant drain on my energy.
Absolutely not.
And so I can cut people off. And so for me, seeing my parents get divorced after when they did, to me, it was fine. Like I was able to separate the two. My mom was having a really hard time.
Did they have an amicable divorce?
No, it wasn't.
Oh, it wasn't.
It wasn't a good divorce. And so
who led the charge?
I would say it was my dad.
Your dad, okay. So it's always harder to be the one being left, right?
Yeah, and so my mom had a hard time, and she talked negative on him all the time. And well, if my life would be different if we didn't get divorced, or if this and that didn't happen. And so, in fact, what you said about you and your mom, it's the same thing with me and my mom. Like right now, we're not talking a whole lot.
Yeah.
Because every single time we talk, there's something that's draining the energy that I have. And so I don't feel like I have time to sit there and talk to her about things. And obviously there's a fine line, because you want to make sure that you're empathetic, sympathetic. You want to make sure you're helping them out if they need help.
Yeah, you can certainly give them a moment or an acceptable amount of time to grieve and be frustrated and be negative. But it can't be in perpetuity.
Right.
It can't be every time you talk over the course of however long it's been. You know? Like at some point, you got to get that train pointed in the right direction.
And some people just can't ever seem to.
Some people like to be miserable. They'd rather be a victim than a hero.
Yeah.
You get to write your own story.
Exactly. And so I have a hard time with people like that. And so I'm able to cut them off and just say, okay, well, if that's how it's going to be, like, I'm fine. And so from an emotional standpoint, it's way easier for me to do that than my wife, Michelle. Like, she would still rather maintain some relationship and have things good. So it's a little bit different for us.
I get that. Well, that's a lot. That's a big similarity there. So then that brings me to my first question for you. Have you read the book Winning the Moment?
Yeah.
You did? Okay, great.
Awesome
so
book.
When I ask what's your biggest win, then you would know I just mean that in however you want to phrase it. But what would you say is your biggest win in your life?
I would say that it was marrying Michelle. Like, Michelle and I are a good balance for each other. I'm like a type A personality. Like, I like to go. I'm very routine oriented. Michelle, on the other hand, is not so much. She would rather kind of fly by the seat of her pants. And so for us, whether it's a financial conversation or whether it's a
so she's less structured.
She's less structured. And to me, that would drive me crazy. Like, I have to, like, I'm up in the morning at the same time.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's your routine, and do you believe your routine has led to your success?
Yeah, so I do think it's led to my success. Like, I'm up at 4:30 in the morning at the gym, come back.
How many days a week?
5 days a week.
Okay, Monday through Friday?
Yeah.
And you get up early on Saturday, Sunday too?
Earlier, I mean, I'm up probably like 6:30.
Okay.
But from there, like, then that gives me time to think about what I have to do that day. It gives me time to, like, I don't know what the word is.
So you go to the gym at 4:30, you're done at when?
I'm there at 5.
At 5, okay.
And then I'll be back at the house by 6:15, 6:30. Okay. And then get showered, get to the office by 7:00. And
oh, dang, you're at the office at 7.
Yeah. The office is quiet. No one else is there. I don't have to worry about, emails or people coming
Well, I guess you got clients on the East Coast and stuff. So for them, it's 9 or 10 o'clock over there.
Yeah. And so for me, I feel like the morning time is the best time for me to get some of the stuff that I need to done. I do, like, visualization, things like that in the morning. And I do think that it really helped me prepare mentally for the day, for life, whatever you want to call it.
I'm way more productive in those early morning hours than any other time of the day.
Yeah. But I've always been that way. Like, my wife, when we were dating in college, she'd have two nights. One night with me that ended at like 9:30.
Yeah.
That's when I'm, like, winding down, and then she'd go out and
hang out with
her friends after that. And so, yeah, I've always been a morning routine kind of a person. But I think that's helped me out a fair amount. So as far as the success, I think her and I are a good balance for each other in life.
Yeah, because you don't want to be too regimented, because then you lose out on spontaneity, you know? So it's like, it's good. And you want your significant other to be more of a yin and a yang than two equal sides of the coin.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, if my kids had two of me, that would probably not be a very good thing.
That's the same for my kids too. They need both my wife and me. But if they had either one, if they had just two of Megan's or two of me, like, they'd be worse off for sure.
Oh yeah.
Because it'd be not enough structure and way too much structure.
Yeah.
Not enough love, too much love. You know?
Yeah. So I think it's a good balance. And I think that that's something that we really are good at, is just helping each other out.
How long have you guys been married?
Since 2010. So 13 years now.
13. Yeah. We got married in 2011. So we're at 12 years.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Okay, so then next question is, what's your biggest loss?
Sometimes, and my wife and I have talked about this, and I don't know if it's a loss, but I look at it as in relationships.
Sure.
Because I can cut people off and move on.
Yeah.
We were talking me and Michelle were talking just the other night, like about the friends that I've had in the past and kind of like what's happened.
Yeah.
And to me, like I never even thought about that. So I'd say to some degree, it's got to be some of the relationships, friendships that, I'm okay with cutting off and not necessarily keeping around anymore.
So are those losses then a positive?
I mean, I view it as a positive, but I don't think that everyone else views it as a positive.
Well, luckily for you, the only opinion that matters is yours.
Yeah. No.
Because if it's a positive for you, then it is a positive. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks because no one's living your life but you.
Right. Yeah. No, and that's a good point. Like, but I do sometimes question whether it is a good thing, like to cut, your mom off or not talk to your mom. And I think you only have so much time in a day. You only have so much mental energy. You only have so much, going on that trying to help somebody else on a regular basis just isn't fun.
Yeah. I think that people get caught up in like, oh, it's your family or it's this or it's that. But it's like at the end of the day, the most important family unit is you, your wife, and your kids.
Right.
Right. And then there's importance that spirals out from there. So if your mom, right, if she was creating an opportunity or an obstacle to where you were less effective father or husband, then that is obviously a negative thing.
Yeah.
Because you got to take care of them first. And so if this output is taking away time from here or making you less effective here in this tight nucleus, that is you, Michelle, and your 3 kids, then I think that there's nothing wrong with that. I think that we allow society to make us feel guilty for decisions that we make. But oftentimes the people that I think are putting that guilt upon you are actually envious of your ability to separate. Because how many people have negative relationships in their lives that they keep because they think they're supposed to?
Oh, there's so many people like that. And I tell, like, whether
and who
it's
told you you're supposed to?
blood family,
Doesn't
like,
matter.
It doesn't matter to me. Like, I feel like I have some friends that are more family than family.
Well, the great thing about your friends is you get to choose them.
Right.
Right? So it's like, yes, is family important? Absolutely. And it's sad to say because I've got 2 children, right? And so I know that there may come a time that the 2 of them feel the same way. Like my son, Cash and Liv, may be like, I dislike the other person and I think they're negative and therefore they're not going to be in my life. And I hope that doesn't happen. But I understand that it's certainly possible, right? And you've got to work to because if you had a friend who always sucked, you just stop hanging out with that friend. And I don't think that depending on your bloodline, that should change. If someone is negative in your life, then it's okay to remove them. And you're not removing them in perpetuity. I got to a point now where I speak to my mom on a fairly regular basis and she's involved in our life, but I needed that break to be able to have, because if I would have just like sparingly kept her involved, we wouldn't have the relationship we have today because it just would have been like this very surface level non-relationship.
Yeah. No, and so I would say that's, well, I mean, my biggest loss is just that, but at the same time, what you just said, I don't know if that is a loss.
Well, I think what's unique about losses is they always become wins with time.
Yeah.
Right. And so it may feel like devastating in the moment, like when you first are like, I can't talk to my mom anymore. Like in the moment of that decision, it's heavy and a lot. But in time, you're like, oh man, my life is better. This is working out better. My relationships that matter to me are better. And so that what was once a loss, with enough room in the review mirror, it starts to become a win. I don't think any loss is a loss forever unless someone actually perishes, right? Unless it's an actual loss of death. Outside of that, I think losses aren't forever.
Yeah. No, that's a good way to look at it.
And I think that's why we perceive failure in the way that we do. It's failure is a necessary caveat to progression.
Yeah. And oftentimes, I mean, I don't know what that saying is, but you got to learn from your losses. And sometimes if you don't, then that's when it becomes a loss, or if you haven't gained anything.
Yeah, right.
Whereas if you're learning from it all the time, I think it's a good thing.
Never a loss. Absolutely. Okay. So then next question is, did you have a mentor in your life that really allowed you to find the success in the industry that you have?
Yeah, I believe a lot in coaching. So I've had a fair amount of coaches throughout my life. Like right now I have one, I would call him more of a life coach than like a specific wealth
business
management
coach. Yeah.
or business
Who's your
coach.
life coach now?
Justin Prince.
That's what I thought. Okay. You've been working with him for a while, right?
Yeah. So we've done it for probably about a year now. And so for me, just having like I told him, I want you to help me in every aspect of my life, like marriage, family, finances, business. So we talk about sometimes the most random things, and sometimes those are the best conversations because.
Is it like a structured hour a week, or how does that work?
It's an hour every other week.
Every other week.
Yeah. So I like that, but now I'm looking at bringing on somebody from the business standpoint that's,
In addition to or in replace of?
No, in addition to.
In addition to.
Yeah.
Did you go to his one event that he did in
California?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was that?
It was awesome.
I want to see him speak in person. I haven't seen him do that yet, but I want to see that.
Next,
he's going to do an event up north, right?
Yeah, next Saturday.
Oh, it's next Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be gone. But I plan to. I feel like the bits and pieces I've gotten, I like what he says, and from an artistic delivery standpoint, I feel like he does a good job, and I want to learn what I can from him.
Yeah, he's a very, very good motivational speaker. Like everything that he says, he tries to break it down to a simple understanding. I mean, when he talks or when he does his course on finances, it's, maximize the money that you're making, minimize the money that's going out on expenses, and then invest. I mean,
pretty simple.
But
that's the truth. Math's easy.
Math's
you don't have
easy.
to complicate it.
And oftentimes, I mean, I'm guilty of it all the time that, try to overcomplicate something. And for him, it's, just break it down to 3 words.
How did you get connected with him?
So he's a neighbor of mine.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, he lives 1 street over.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So then next question is, you've read Winning the Moment, favorite part or anything that stuck out to you or something you want to talk about or have a discovery on? What was the thing that stood out to you?
I think that one thing that I mean, how long has that book been out now?
January 3rd. So not even a year.
Okay. So I read it right when it came out. I pre-ordered it. But one thing that I highlighted was when you talked about Andrew, like as far as,
oh yeah.
And I also didn't know that you and Brett kind of had some issues in the beginning. I thought you guys were just always just like really, really good friends. But just, sometimes it's easy to look at the outside of somebody and say, like an Andrew, and say,
yeah,
this guy's got everything taken care of. His business is going well. And if someone looks at it from a financial standpoint, he's doing
handsome,
fine.
Healthy, good family, great business. Color in that box and it's perfect.
Yeah. And so one thing that in the book you were talking about was just taking Andrew as an example and saying, okay, there's more to life than just financial.
Yeah.
And so it's something that I was struggling with, and I actually went and had lunch with Andrew and just picked his brain around.
Because of the book?
Because of the book.
Wow, that's a cool story.
I highlighted it and went back and said, dude, I got to talk to you about this. And so it started a conversation, which then has helped me to, I mean, he told me, he's like, hey, you got to fail on purpose sometimes. Like,
yeah,
if someone wants something right then, like, tell them you can't do it. Whereas before, I'm like, if someone calls me, I'm jumping all over it and trying to make it happen right then and there.
Yeah, no, I've fallen victim to that too. That's what a great story that you took that and went and had a conversation with them and had an impactful thing. It was funny because, so I wrote it with a ghostwriter. And so in the process of that, it's really a conversation. It's very much like this, right? Yeah. And he's just dictating it. And so he would be like, what do you want to talk about? And I was like, well, I was going to lunch with Andrew and this, and then you do it. And then they send you the chapter and you're reading it and you're kind of like, oh shit. Like, I didn't mean it. Like, so I didn't want it that, so then but it's awesome. So I'm like, God, there's a lot of value here. So then I show it to Andrew and I say, look, this is how you're portrayed. Like, are you okay with this? Do you want me to change your name? Do you want me to change your profession? Like, or do you want me to remove it? Like, this is your story. It's not mine. So you sign off on it, which he obviously did. And even Brex was funny too, because he had the same opportunity, And then the book comes out and people are giving him shit, and he's like, God, I should have read that more carefully.
He's like, yeah, it's fine. Just signed off on it, right? Without reading it.
But the thing is like even the comment you made, like, oh, I thought you and Breck were always good friends. We always were. Right. But that's just life.
Yeah.
He made a business decision and so did I, and it's like you can make a business decision that doesn't align with your friends' beliefs or desires, and it doesn't have to change your friendship. Now it might,
right?
But it doesn't have to.
Yeah. So no, that was very impactful for me because, before I was always, everything had to be business. Like, so, if I'm at home and somebody calls me or texts me, no matter what time it is, I'm answering that call or getting back to them via email. And anymore, it's like, no, So I've made a goal, and one thing that Justin's helped me out with is that when I walk into the house, like I touch just like the side of the frame of the door from the garage to the house. And when I do that, like I'm home.
Yeah.
And so when I'm home, I got to be focused on being present there and being the best dad, best husband, everything that I can do there because I can't control anything else.
Yeah. I had a speaking coach named Michael Alasso, and he came from a drama background. So he's this amazing speaker because he's so dramatic.
Yeah.
Right. And he's just this kooky older guy. And like he sings and does all this funny stuff and does things that would make people uncomfortable. But then like you get into it, So he's really, really good, really grabs your attention. And he calls it the second act. So he's like, when you go to work, that's your first act. And when you come home, it's your second act. And so one of his clients has on his garage door, like second act. So he like mentally gets into the mind frame of like, I'm no longer acting as a CEO. I'm now acting as a father, And so we talked about like, and this actually helped me. If he had a work call when he pulled into the garage, he'll finish the call in the car.
Yeah.
So that way he's not walking into the house. And I was guilty of that. You'd walk in after being gone all day and you're on an important work call and your kids and your dogs and your wife are all happy to see you. And you're like pushing them away and they're like, what the hell? But they don't understand,
Right.
And so now I just finish it in the car before I walk in. So when I come into the house, I'm presently there as a father,
And I think that's one of the biggest things that I've done or that Justin's helped me out with is just being present wherever I am. Like if I'm at the office, like I tell Michelle, I'm at the office. If I'm driving to an appointment, I can give you a call and check in, see how the day's going, but I don't have time to separate the two.
It's a real thing. Megan and I have been together so long, just like you and your wife. And so when I was really cutting my teeth in the corporate world, she would be like, I wish you would text me during the day. And I was like, that's just not on my mind. Like when I'm at one of my locations, like helping teach them how to sell, the last thing I'm thinking about is like, what are you doing?
Right.
And it's not that I don't love you. It's just, that's not where my head's at. And so I put it in my calendar, text Megan at 2:00. And she was like, you put it in your calendar? Like, that's ridiculous. And I was like, Meg, everything that's important to me, I put in my calendar. That's me showing you, if it matters to you, I will schedule it because I have to treat it like I would treat anything else that needs to get done. I need a reminder.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what I'm going to be doing at 2:00 or any time of the day. But
Right.
if it's really important to you that I do that, I'll put it in my calendar and then I will message like, hope you're having a good day,
And I think that's really helped out in every aspect of life. It's just separating, like when you're there, you got to be there 100% of the time or present wherever you are.
Be wherever you're at.
Yeah.
Because you're doing a disservice to anyone else otherwise. If
Exactly.
you're at home and you're worried about work, you're doing a disservice to your family. If you're at work and you're thinking about your family, you're doing a disservice to your company.
Absolutely.
So it's like wherever you are, just be there.
Yeah.
When I started in the corporate world, I was the same as you and just like so overly committed to always be available. So like we had retail locations, they'd be open till 9:00 at night. And I would be like in my office at 9:00, helping the closer get stuff done, not realizing I'm taking away from their manager's ability because I was their district manager.
Yeah.
So they're calling me. I'm taking away their manager's ability to manage them. I'm taking away their ability to figure it out on their own. And I was just solving, always being available. And I can remember being at Dave & Buster's with my wife and one of my best friends, Mike Gutierrez, who was also a district manager. And he was telling me like, dude, at some point you're going to have to like not be so available, And I got mad at them and I left. Because I was like, you're not going to tell me how to run my business. And like now I can see how immature that I was being, but I thought success was always being available.
Right.
Like if someone needed something, I was always going to get it done no matter what instantly. So they would be like, wow, like Cody's always working.
He's on
The
top of
problem
it.
is then you set that expectation. So now if they email you at 11:00 at night, they expect you to respond. And so now if you don't respond till the next day, they're like, hey, are you okay?
Yeah.
Everything,
Right.
And so now it's like, now you've got to be this person forever, because if you stop being this successful robot, then they feel like you're not doing the job as good as you could be, even though that was never the expectation anyways. I created that burden for myself. It's like I tell people now, I don't answer if clients call after 6:00 because it's like, I'm not going to set the expectation. I'm going to answer.
Right.
I'll call you back tomorrow. And if it's an emergency, you'll let me know and we'll handle it. But if it's not an emergency, like we'll talk tomorrow. It's not a big deal.
Well, and that's another area in your book that I highlighted was when you talked about that story, was because I'm guilty of that. Like anytime somebody would call, and McCrae Hepler, has he been on this?
Yeah, he was the episode before you.
Okay. So yeah, me and McCrae, we talk all the time. I mean, we go to the gym in the mornings together. And so for McCrae, like I remember he went to that Justin Prince event and he's like, okay, I'm turning off all notifications. And I'm like, dude, how do you do that? But now he's able to keep a balance of life, because before,
he was totally in that grind.
I could text him anytime and say, hey, who owns this property? Or if I was trying to buy something or do something, and he was getting back to me right away. And so it did create that, like, that idea that anytime I want to get a hold of McRae, I can.
Yeah.
And now he's changed that paradigm. And for me, it's been an eye-opening experience, and it's been really, really good.
Yeah, I think it's important for people starting out their careers to listen to this message, because you can just start being that way from the beginning, and be really careful with the expectations that you set.
Well, yeah, because as a consumer, if I email somebody at 6 o'clock at night, 95% of the time, I don't ever expect another email back until the following day. Yeah. But in our heads, we feel like we got to be out so on top of it that we put that on ourselves.
And I remember being burdened once. My regional manager sent me an email like Sunday night at 9 o'clock. And I responded, and I said something like smart assy, like, in the future, please email me on Monday morning so I don't feel compelled to respond to you at Sunday night. And her response was like, you didn't have to respond.
Right.
Like, I would have been fine if you responded. Like, that's your shit. That's not mine. You know, I'm working, doesn't mean you have to, but I just didn't have that. The understanding or that built yet that, like, okay, I don't, just because someone emails me doesn't mean I have to respond.
Yeah. No, I think that was a very, very valuable lesson that I was able to take from a couple of different stories. One is your book. Second one was from Justin and McRae's.
Yeah.
So those three.
I love that. Okay. So then last and final question, the one that I deem the most important, but how do you define success?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I mean, for me, I think it's balance. Like, if I can have balance in life, success, finances, family, like, and not necessarily like equal time in all of them, but
just balance.
Balance, like family, everyone's doing good, everyone's healthy, we're having a good time, but then, like, we're having success in the business side of things as well. I think that would be what I would define success as.
That might be my favorite answer. No one said that, but balance that's so good, because that's really what it is. That's what we're all trying to do.
Right. Yeah, because at the end of the day, I mean, you can't take any of the stuff here with you.
Yeah.
And so it's all about relationships. And I said that, but after what I said earlier, cutting people off. But I really do think...
Two things can be true at once.
Yeah. But I do think that if I look at success, it's got to be a combination of balance in my life.
I love that. Okay, well, anything you want to leave the listeners with?
No, this is awesome. Thank you. Thanks for having me on this. It's been fun.
Yeah, it was a great conversation. I loved it. If you want to connect with Levi, you can do so on Instagram at Swenson Financial. I'll put that Instagram handle in the show notes so it's easy to find. But Levi, thanks so much for being here, man. I loved it.
Hey, thanks for putting this on. Thank you.